Greetings, this is Brick Ruby, the Nostalgia Catholic, with my next installment of my reviews of the Isaac Asimov short stories. Now we're dealing with the very next one after his very famous Nightfall story. This was in the October 1941 issue of Astounding, which the cover does not acknowledge in any way that Asimov has any story inside, but the table of contents, of course, tells us otherwise. In particular, there's a story here called Not Final. So, by Isaac Asimov, page 49. There's a little squib here, and it reads, "The Jovians wanted to get out and destroy every other living thing in the solar system. They would if they could find a way to retain their terrific atmosphere in a spaceship." So, alright, this is on page 49. Let's take a look at page 49. We have artwork associated with it. There's a scene in the story where this one guy's walking this other guy from one part of the Ganymede stations and stuff to another. They get out in their spacesuits and they walk on this. At one point, a large spaceship swooshes by overhead, and the visitor looks up and sees Jupiter from really close, where instead of being this little dot or P in the sky, it's this giant disk about 32 times as wide from edge to edge as the moon or sun would be from Earth. And obviously, Jupiter seen from such a perspective would be a very impressive sight. But in the context of this story, a very threatening sight. So, because there are creatures on board, or in the Jupiter, who were able to communicate by radio transmission. They had some clicking language that took a while, some time to parse, but they were able to parse it. And at some point, they hadn't understood that they were talking to non-Jovians. Suddenly, they figured that out, and rather than just say, "Oh, who are you? Tell me about yourself," it was like, "What right do you have to exist? We're going to destroy you. We're going to devote all our efforts to destroying you." So, once again, there's another squib here. It says, "There was a bomb, an 85,000 mile diameter bomb, waiting to burst a flood of destruction on the system if only they could find a way to get out." That bomb being, of course, the planet Jupiter. Not that it's going to literally explode, but that all this vast army, that you can only just imagine how vast they would be on a planet that size. But they're thousands of miles down into that atmosphere, at a place where hydrogen is, well, not quite a metal, but almost. And the density is just, how are you going to contain that kind of density in a spaceship? That's kind of the story, really. Well, there's only one way you could do it. If you want to fly the creatures out of their Jovian environment and into outer space, you have to build a spaceship of some sort. They don't have normal metals. The ammonias and other chemicals down there would dissolve just about any thinkable metal. So what you're going to have to do is build force fields. And apparently they have enough of a technology to be able to do that. And so now that means on Ganymede we're very concerned about this, because if they do come out, that's going to be the first place they're going to attack. They may not even know there's anybody anywhere else besides Ganymede. So, obviously they are understandably concerned. So what will they do? Well, they're trying to develop force fields too, same technology. And that's almost the story. I guess it's a kind of an interesting juncture where they could finally get to the point where they realize, hey, the laws of physics make it impossible to make a force field even strong enough to support Earth's atmosphere, to say nothing of Jupiter, because it's unstable, it'll fall apart almost immediately, so you can't do it. Ah, we're safe. Whew. Okay. Only the very end of the story is, well, now, wait a minute. If you turn on and turn off thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions or billions of times per second the force field, it won't have time to decay, and the little moments, between it that it's not going will be far too brief for any amount of the atmosphere. If you flash it fast enough, you could probably contain an atomic blast. So, looks like maybe there's a way they would, hence, not final. First, final. They can't do anything. They're trapped. That's the end. It occurs to me one other thing they could have done was to think about sending, like, robotic type machinery. But they didn't think of that. And apparently, neither did the humans at this time, even though he's written several robot stories already. So later on, there'll be another story about this same context. Well, what happened next? They could build a force field if they just figured out the trick to it. So what are they going to do? Well, the humans decided to do something else, but that's another story, and we will get to that. Anyway, so this was a story in astounding science fiction. As far as I know, the text seems to be completely identical to the form that the text takes when we printed in the Early Asimov. So there's kind of a lot of these early stories that, for whatever interest they had, they just didn't seem to warrant turning up in any other collections. And there's really not a whole lot else about it. He's still having beings from outer space. And I have to wonder why John Campbell would be okay with the fact that these beings might be capable of launching a war against us. And I guess it's only that, well, we're clever enough to think of this super fast oscillating force field thing that won't have time to go unstable, and maybe they won't be. Maybe. Okay. Yeah, never some one single clever Jovian came up with the idea. We're all doomed. So that's kind of a precarious situation, and it leaves it there. So it's an okay story, but not the great classic as that which preceded it. Well, that's a quality of story you only rarely see anyway. At Nightfall. So I think that pretty much finishes this. This is actually surprisingly little that needs to be said here. I guess if nothing else, it shows that just because you can write a glorious Nightfall story doesn't mean that you're going to that everything you write from now on is going to be this great, awesome, stunning classics. In fact, the next story we're going to get an even more dramatic example, but we'll get to that next installment. Thanks for listening.